Hi, my name is Zachary Anderlett, and I want to explain for loops in Go in kind of a step-by-step way for people who may not be used to Go or may not be used to using for loops in programming, and so I want to explain each part. So what we are starting out with is the main function here and a function called for looping, and we're returning a string. In Go, you have to specify the types that are coming in and the types that are coming out of the function. A function is just something that runs. It's got a name, for looping, and it's just meant to process something. So just think about it as some kind of event, like, a race or something. It's just an operation. And so in this operation, we're going to add the for loop. And you would start by the first couple characters, for, and then you begin kind of the for loop operation. I'm going to use the variable I for index, and I'm going to use colon equals in order to initialize it, and I'm going to start the index at 0. And so this is the first part that basically says start from the start. And the next part is what it's going to index through. And we'll just choose the number 8. You could choose whatever number you want. Semicolon again for the first two parts, and then the increment. We use the curlies in order to state what to do afterwards. And so that operation's going to be, let's say, print out the index. Now, you would think this would work, but we added the return string. So we have to return something. And so that would be anything you want as much as it's a string. So we do that, and you would think this would still work, but we have to, in order to run it, we have to call it within the main function. Now everything has to be within the main function, but if you're going to have a main function, you got to have some kind of operation to tell it what to do. And so we're going to start by making a variable equals, and basically var just means hold this in memory. We have to do that because we're returning a string. It has to return into something. It can't just return into nothing. So we do for looping, and we call the function basically. But we have to do something with this named variable, because Go won't let you make and initialize variables without using them. And so we're just going to print it out. Now, we do have two prints here, and that's pretty much what's going to happen. But one is going to cycle through it. The other one is going to be added into it. So we'll see what happens. See, the worked is what was returned because it's a string, and the string, it goes into D, and that's what's printed here. The I is the index, 0 through 7, because we did less than, not less than, equal to. And so let's say we wanted to use some kind of small practical example, and that would be, let's make a variable and let's cycle through maybe the characters. This is a for loop. Now, in order to cycle through all the characters of that string, if you are able to presume the index of that certain data structure, you can for loop through every single one of it using the len built-in function. And so this basically says if I is under the index of how many characters it has, then print them out. But this is just the index, and so we need to do b. You would think this would work, but in fact we have to index through each one of the characters. Just because the for loop takes apart each one and counts it, when we go to print it, it needs to understand that we have to take each character when it's kind of indexed through. The for loop itself has nothing to do with the printing of taking out each character, so we have to kind of tell it, hey, as you index, grab each character. And in order to do this, we use a thing called slices, which is started off with a square bracket. And basically what this is, if you have a a string of something or an array or some kind of data structure, you're going to slice it at whatever point. And so the slice that we're going to use is going to be the index. So as it cycles through, it's going to slice each letter off. Not off, but it's going to take a copy of it. But in order to make this actually print correctly, because it is a slice, we got to add in string and convert it to a string. Because currently, if you're slicing a string up, it's actually going to turn to a byte. Because you have bytes and they make up strings. And so this will actually print out each letter and not just the byte of each letter. Here we can add the whole string if you wanted to. And let's run it. And there we go. We have each one of the letters in the spaces and the final printout of B. So this seems simple, but when you start to get into trying to do whatever you want with it, change a letter or whatever, things start to get a little more complicated. But if you really wanted to dig into that part of it, you know then that if you're taking a slice of something and it's a string, like here, and let's say you wanted to compare and find one of the letters. In Go, you don't use the round bracket, you just do if, and you do the comparison operator, equal, equal, and let's choose one of the letters F. And then use the curlies in order to state that you're going to do some other operation if this comparison works. And so we'll just print out found F. And that's really all it's going to do. I would put else here and say it didn't, but then it'll print it out a bunch of times. So we'll see what happens with this. Found F. Right where F is. So this would be a way to kind of control the characters that you're looking for. Where this might get a little messy is if you're taking part of the string and you want to return it. And so if you were to add, let's say, a return statement here, it has to be a string of some sort. So you would have to return that character with string. Because remember, a slice of something, especially a string, is a byte. Not always, but for strings, when you're slicing them, it's a byte. So if you're going to return something, it would have to be that string B and then the index of I. You can pick apart certain parts of it and make it stop at certain parts. You can do whatever operation you want, but this is just a way to loop through something, get more control, kind of understand what's going on. If this seems a little too complicated, because you're just dealing with a string trying to find a letter, a lot of times other languages will have something called reduce or filter or whatever in order to find a certain part of a value. And so you're probably thinking, well, if I got to write all this and it doesn't have these other methods that are really useful, built specifically for things like this, what's the point? But the point is that you can reuse this, you can change it, other people can use it, so on and so forth. They can read it. They can basically understand that you're looping through it. If you find a certain letter, print it out. And so they can add or remove or change or whatever. And since it's inside of a function, because for loops have to be inside of a function, all they have to do is call this and they'll know, oh, okay, well, this is going to return, whatever letter you're planning on returning. Actually, you'd probably put that up here, but I think you get the idea. And so that's generally the idea of for loops. They also Go has a thing called range loops, which is sort of like a for each. It just says range through the values of the certain data structure. And then you can get the index and the value from it, because it'll be more or less like an array, and so it's sort of like a for each loop. But this is one way to do it that I think would probably be pretty efficient. And it's pretty spelled out what's going on. So, hope you understood what was going on, and hopefully I didn't go too fast. If you have any other comments or anything on it, let me know. All right? Thank you.